Coming up, with harsher weather conditions possible in the months to come, what homeless shelters are doing to guarantee a warm welcome.
And plenty of sunshine on the way for the first half of the holiday week. I'll have the latest on the rest of it as well right now, as First at 4 continues.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
While the holidays are right around the corner, so is wintertime. And for people experiencing homelessness, this season comes with a whole host of dangers. But staff with one organization in our area are making plans to help. WYMT's Vivica Grayson has more from Breathitt County.
Staff here at the Haven House are prepared to help those impacted by homelessness right here in Eastern Kentucky. Help that takes extra planning and other resources ahead of the winter. For many, winter usually means holidays, family gatherings, and gift giving. But for people experiencing homelessness, winter is a brutal time, as working to stay warm becomes a constant part of their lives. The cold weather often makes life living on the streets more dangerous than usual due to the risk of hypothermia. And on top of physical dangers, many people face a feeling of isolation around the holidays. This is why staff at the Haven House are helping those in Eastern Kentucky ahead of the season change, doing anything they can to keep people safe and warm this holiday season.
A lot of times they want to be with their family. Here at Haven House, we try our best to be a family. Yeah, and we try to make it as homey as we can, and we always make sure they have a big Thanksgiving dinner, a big Christmas dinner. We provide gifts for them. We have churches. Our community is just wonderful.
Now, Brown says you can also do your part to help those impacted by donating various winter items like coats, gloves, and hats. In Breathitt County, Vivica Grayson, WYMT Mountain News.
The National Alliance to End Homelessness reports more than 580,000 people experienced homelessness in January of 2020, with more than 4,000 here in Kentucky.
Continuing to watch cold air filter into the region this evening with those northwest winds behind that front. But before we got to the evening, the WYMT weather team has been busy. Not only do we have winter weather outlook tonight, but Brandon Robinson went out and visited some kids this afternoon at DeWitt Elementary School in Knox County. Excuse me, the cold weather getting me all choked up. 4th, 5th, and 6th grade here at DeWitt Elementary School. Great group of kids there as well. So thanks for coming out for weather class there this morning. I-75 at Mount Vernon. Not too bad out there as we start to get some of the clouds to diminish this evening with that sun starting to set as well. Temperatures on the cool side with those temperatures right now upper 30s, low 40s in most spots. It's a clean sweep on pinpoint Doppler, which means we're going to continue to see temperatures diminish later on tonight because we're working the cloud cover out as well. As we do, we're going to be able to drop those temperatures again tonight, low to mid 20s overnight with skies turning mostly clear. The weather roller coaster continues right on through this holiday week, and I'll have the latest on that coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Evan, thank you. Kentucky's Search Warrant Task Force is meeting again in Frankfort. The group was put together by Attorney General Daniel Cameron to review the state's search warrant policies. It came after the death of Breonna Taylor. She was shot and killed by Louisville police when they were serving a warrant at her apartment. Victor Puente has the latest from today's meeting.
Attorney General Daniel Cameron has said his hopes for these meetings is that they would lead to recommendations that they would make to lawmakers and the courts. This is part of the top to bottom review of the search warrant process he said was necessary after the death of Breonna Taylor. The task force is split into 3 different committees, one focusing on securing, one on reviewing, and one on serving search warrants. Today they discussed steps such as an online portal so the public can know their rights if they have their home searched. They also talked about concerns over threat assessment and the roles prosecutors play when it comes to warrants being written. One judge said no matter who writes the warrant, a judge would still have the final say on if it could be executed. Another issue brought up was the different criteria being used by different departments when it comes to threat assessments.
Some departments are using threat assessments. Some search warrants get threat assessments. Some may not. But I would recommend to anybody in any class that I might be inclined to or be involved in teaching, that a threat assessment be performed on everyone. But I can't sit here and tell you that the 400 and some odd police departments across the state of Kentucky are all doing threat assessments on every search warrant that they do.
They didn't vote on any of those recommendations today. They plan on doing that at their next meeting, which is December 9th. In Frankfort, Victor Puente, WKYT.
Well, as prices go up, President Biden's approval ratings are going down. A new poll shows 2/3 of Americans disapprove of how the president is handling inflation. A new CBS News poll turned up low numbers and bad political news for President Biden. More than 2/3 of Americans, 67%, now disapprove of how the president is handling inflation. His overall approval rating is just 44%, the lowest in CBS News polling since he took office.
To many Americans, when they rate the economy, it's what's right in front of them, the prices they're paying, in this case, at that gas pump or that cash register.
The president's advisors hope his social spending bill will bring political and economic relief, but opponents say it could have the opposite effect. 5 people were killed and 48 injured when a man drove through a Christmas parade in Wisconsin. That man is in police custody. CBS's Marissa Parr reports from Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Police have identified the driver of this SUV who plowed into a crowd at a holiday parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin as 39-year-old Daryl Brooks of Milwaukee. Police say he was fleeing a domestic disturbance and that he acted alone.
There's no evidence that this is a terrorist incident.
We have about 10 to 15 people down in the street. We also got multiple critical cases.
Police say an officer shot at the SUV to try to stop it, but had to stop firing to avoid the crowd. The 5 victims who died range in age between 52 to 81 years old.
Waukesha has held what can be described as a Norman Rockwell type of Christmas parade for almost 6 decades. Last night, our wonderful Waukesha parade became the scene of a horrific tragedy.
We saw the whole thing happen.
Richard Locke's son and niece were marching in the parade, came home later to find that same SUV went through his yard, damaging a car.
You think in hindsight about what response you could have to stop the guy, and it's just, you know, even if I was right in front of it, it would have been hard to stop it. I mean, he was going probably 30 to 35 miles an hour when he went past.
Main Street where this happened is now back open, but what remains is the paint where police marked off evidence left on the road. President Biden spoke about the tragedy this afternoon.
And an entire community is struggling to cope with the horrific act of violence.
Brooks will face 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, and possibly other charges could be coming. Marissa Parra, CBS News, Waukesha, Wisconsin.
A vigil will be held this evening in the city. $500 million in illegal marijuana was seized from a warehouse in Oregon. They discovered it during a 2-day raid of 5 industrial-sized warehouses in White City. Authorities say the marijuana has an estimated street value of $500 million. Several people in the warehouse were detained, interviewed, and released. Officials say some of those questioned were migrant workers living in subpar conditions with no running water. Under Oregon state law, adults 21 and over may use cannabis within specified limits, but it is illegal to manufacture marijuana without a license. The Department of the Interior has formally identified the term squaw as derogatory and is working to rename federal lands that currently have offensive names. According to the University of Idaho, the word squaw was initially introduced by Lewis and Clark in 1805. Over time, it came to be used as a slur in reference to indigenous or Native American women. According to the Department of the Interior, there are more than 650 federal land units that contain the term. The Native American Rights Fund applauded Interior Secretary Deb Haaland's orders, saying they were, quote, long overdue. The EPA's annual auto trends and emissions report finds CO2 emissions from vehicles reached a record low in model year 2020, but it also found growth of electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids is slow. The EPA found electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles accounted for just 2% and non-plug-in hybrids made up 5% of all vehicle production. The EPA and President Biden are working toward the president's goal that half of vehicles sold in the U.S. will be battery electric, fuel cell electric, or plug-in hybrid by 2030. Country music legends Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn have music that surpasses generations, and for the last 5 years, their grandchildren have worked to make sure of that. Taylor Lynn and Trey Twitty are celebrating 5 years of sharing songs and stories they collected from their grandparents through the years, performing tribute shows not as an impersonation but an illustration to keep the memory of Conway and the presence of Loretta on the stage where it belongs from one generation to the next.
You know, they haven't seen any kind of Twitty and Lynn thing in over 30 years.
And they knew all the songs, and they were just as excited as the grandmothers because it's a piece of them too.
The duo made a trip to Butcher Holler between their shows in Pikeville this weekend. We'll have more from Loretta Lynn's home place coming up at 6. But next here on First at 4, holiday travelers are faced with the most expensive gas prices in years. We'll tell you when those costs could start coming down.
And a similar pattern in place as we head later on into the work week. I'll have the latest on what that means for your Thanksgiving forecast coming up.